Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Eldridge. I'm Vice President of the Eastern Charlotte Chamber of Commerce. Delighted to have you all here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this very, very important event. I want to start by thanking our Executive Director Extraordinaire at the back of the room, Andrea. If you haven't met Andrea, make a point of, make a point of saying hello to Andrea. Faith you'll be hearing lots from her here shortly. She's on our board and kindly agreed to chair us this evening. And of course to our wonderful candidates who are, this is a little bit of a busy time for all of you, right? Yeah, a little bit. So thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be here. If you're not a member of the Chamber of Commerce and you are a business owner and you want more information about joining our wonderful community here, please be sure to connect with Andrea, myself, Faith, another board member, Joan, is at the back of the room as well. So if you want more information on that, we're very, very happy to share. Other than that, I will turn things over to Faith, and she will get us started for the evening.
Welcome, everybody. As Elizabeth pointed out, my name is Faith. I will be your moderator for this evening. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for this special event. It's wonderful to see so many engaged and interested community members here. We've gathered this evening for a very important reason, to meet and get to know the candidates running for the positions of MLA and to hear about their visions for our future. So I wanted to introduce everybody. First, we have Chris Wanamaker for the NDP, Ian Lee for PC, Progressive Conservative, Patty Bolthwick for Liberal, and Keith Tays for the Liberation Party. And they're all running for Fundy-The Isles and St. John Lorneville.
Libertarian.
Libertarian, oh, sorry. Okay. So now, tonight is an opportunity for us to ask the questions, learn about their platforms, and understand what each one of the candidates stand for. This is your chance to make an informed decision and ensure your voice is heard. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to thank these candidates, as Elizabeth did. They are busy, and they took time out of their schedule to be here with us, so that is fantastic. Putting their names forward to run for this office is not an easy decision. Let's all give them a round of applause just for doing that. Rules are very simple. We will be kind to one another, we will not attack one another, and we will show respect, giving each candidate a chance to speak and be heard. You're welcome to cheer or grumble if you feel you need be, but at the end of their statements. This event will run exactly 2.5 hours, exactly ending at 8:30 sharp. The candidates drew for the order of speaking, and they're seated in the order of speaking that they will be talking. What happens is, when it comes time for question period, Chris will be the first one to answer the first question. The next question, the second one, will be Ian will be first, and so on each down the line. That way, everybody gets a chance to be first, everybody gets a chance to be last, just to make it fair. We'll start the brief opening statements from each candidate, followed by the question and answer session where you guys submitted questions at the back of the room. Please feel free to be candid and thoughtful as you'd like to be, as this is making sure we have the information we need. Answers to questions will be limited to 3 minutes in order to maximize the number of questions allowed. If each member of the public could ask only one question until the questions have been asked, then we should be able to get through the questions quickly. So what will happen is there will be a timer with 3 minutes. When it's 30 seconds, Andrea will let me know by waving her hand, and I'll let the speaker know 30 seconds left on their 3 minutes. Elizabeth will do the same thing with the 2-minute questions. And so let's get this started. I'm excited to hear from each of the candidates to see their dialogue unfold. Thank you again for being here, and let's have a great evening. So first up is Chris Wanamaker.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you all for coming out. It's good to see so many people here today. And greetings to the other candidates, and I wish you well and it's kind of exciting to be here. I wish everybody good luck in your campaigns. I know what you may be thinking. You may be wondering why this old guy that you've never seen before is here and why he's bothering to run for the NDP. And one of the reasons I'm running is because for a long time I've been a great admirer of Tommy Douglas, who was the founder of the NDP. And you may remember a little bit about him, maybe not that much, but I'd like to tell his story again. And if you're hearing it for the first time, you might find it interesting. Tommy Douglas was born in Scotland in 1901. And like my own parents, he grew up poor. And he and his family came to Winnipeg when Tommy was 10. He was the son of an iron worker. And soon after they arrived, his father was laid off from his job. Then at the age of 12, Tommy developed a bone infection, and they couldn't find a doctor that they could pay for, that they could afford. And it looked like he was going to lose his leg. It was a crisis for him, as you can imagine. Finally, they found a doctor who would treat him for free as long as he became an exhibit for the doctor's students. So they saved his leg, thank God. That was quite an experience for him, as you would imagine. Jobs and food were scarce in Tommy's time, and when he was 18, Tommy was a witness to the largest general strike in Canada. Do you know what that was? That was the Winnipeg General Strike. And he saw police beating the strikers with their batons, and as a result, he developed a passion for justice, for social justice, economic justice. And today, if he were here today, it would probably be environmental justice as well. Douglas went on to become a Baptist minister. He helped form a political party, the CCF, otherwise known as the Commonwealth Cooperative Federation. It's a mouthful. And then in Saskatchewan, he won one election after another. And why did he win those elections with his party that was new? He won the election on a promise of publicly funded health care. The CCF became the NDP, and over time, Medicare became Canada's most important social program. But Douglas faced intense opposition.
30-second mark. Sorry.
30-second? When he first tried to implement Medicare, more than 900 doctors protested. They closed their doors. They went on strike. Some left the province. But Douglas persisted in his efforts. He didn't give up. And Medicare became a reality in his province and in Canada.
Next up is Ian.
Hi, everybody. I would just like to say thank you to Faith and Elizabeth and Andrea for organizing the event and sending the invitation. I'm sure there's more people behind the scenes that need the accolades as well, so please give that to them. Folks, born and bred, St. George, downtown Bonnie River is where I live. Listen, for me, getting into this, it was, as a young man, you kind of see it and then you don't really think about it until later on in life. My father and Greg Thompson were very good friends. So Greg was always at the house. They were both St. Stephen boys, and I remember Greg always being at the house and having conversations, so I was just always absorbing and observing. And then later in life, I decided to make that choice to pursue politics. For me, a lot of my ethics and morals fall into the category of the progressive conservatives. And for me, this election is very crucial, not only for the province, I would say also the role that the province plays, also crucial within the nation of Canada. So for me, the Progressive Conservative Party, the platform, things that we're talking about, for us as a party, we will continue to do sound fiscal management as proven throughout our time in office so far. Again, the proposed HST cut of 14% by 2025 and then 13% in 2026. A PCMB government is making strides to get people faster access to healthcare, which is an ongoing issue. The scope of practice, expanding them for nurse practitioners, registered nurses, psychiatric nurses, also including paramedics and pharmacists. The province has now increased their medical seating from 70 to 74. They've introduced a new 3-year nursing degree to be implemented at UMBSJ. This is interesting to me because we met in this very hall a while ago with a bunch of ex-students of mine, and they were always talking about wanting to learn about buying cars and mortgages. And now the government has decided to announce a financial literacy statement. The healthcare budget is the biggest that it's been so far. For housing, 6,000 units by 2030, 30,000 units will be built. As for cell phones, the government already has accepted bids from service providers, and a second RFP has been issued, and between $50 and $60 million are earmarked to do that. Also, the government was the first to talk about financial incentives to doctors for them to see more patients. So, for me, there's many more things that we could talk about. There's many more things that could be brought up. But you have
30-second mark.
You have the democratic ability to vote, and I encourage you to be strategic in your voice. I would ask that you would feel who you feel could best represent you in the upcoming election. And I'm not here to serve. I'm not here to be served. I am here to serve. And so I have no cause, but my agenda is you and this riding. So thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Just waiting for the timer. Okay. Your turn, Patty.
Hi, I'm Patty Borthwick. Most of you probably know me. I'm running for Susan Holt for the provincial Liberals, not Trudeau, as some get confused. And I won't go through what the platform is of Susan tonight because I'm sure your questions are going to cover that. I'm just going to let you know what I see and what I would like to do here if we can do it to help this community and help this riding. I've lived here since 1978. I live in Utopia. I have a husband, I have 2 children, and there's a lot of things here that need to be fixed. Number 1 is the drinking water issues that we have in this riding, and anybody that lives here knows that we have that problem. We had a meeting today with the mayor who addressed how they're going to fix that, and I can answer that later. Also, our island residents, they're forgotten. Deer Island has an unreliable ferry service, and Graham and Ann feel that the highway to the mainland shouldn't cost them to come over here. So there's ferry issues, and we can't forget our island representatives, our island constituents. The other thing I want to fight for is Susan Holt has promised 30 care centers, collaborative care centers, and I'm going to work with her and fight with her to make sure that Fundy Health Center becomes one of those 30 because we need it. Also, I'm going to address the flooding issues that happen out all the way from Canal, Second Falls, Bonnie River down to the lake because it's something that needs to be addressed. That's been going on for years. Affordable housing is another. We need housing units, let alone affordable. We need some housing units. Tourism, we're the forgotten province, but we certainly have a beautiful riding, and everybody drives through us to get to other places, whether it's the American side or whether it's Prince Edward Island, but we are forgotten. The mobile crisis unit for mental health only comes down as far as outside of West St. John, doesn't come here, and we need help. As you know, we have a mental health crisis in the country, in the province, and especially in this riding. Property taxes. There's going to be reform on the property taxes to help seniors, to make sure seniors can stay in their homes and not have to pay all of their income in elevated prices on the property taxes. We've had a recent announcement as well on cell phone and internet connectivity that should help people access their health records.
30-second mark.
And also help people with phone calls because everybody's tired. You know, if you're in an emergency and your cell phone coverage drops. I'm going to do the best that I can. If you know me, you know I'm a fighter. I'm not afraid of taking on anything, and I hope to represent you after October 21. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Just waiting to reset. Keith. Okay, we're all set.
Hi, my name is Keith Hayes. I'm one of the founders of the Libertarian Party. We're a brand new party, about 2 months old. We ended up fielding 18 candidates for this election, which is unheard of. So Libertarian basically means advocate for liberty. So we essentially believe that 90% of the federal government should be done by the provinces, and 90% of what the provinces do should be done by local communities, basically. We believe that communities and individuals are better at dealing with any issue than a large government. New Brunswick has the largest government per capita in all of Canada. We feel New Brunswickers are way overtaxed, and we feel like the free market is more adept at fixing local problems than government. And that's basically my intro. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Now we're going to turn it over to Elizabeth for questions.
Thanks so much, everyone. Wonderful. We wanted this to be very dramatic, the bringing up of the questions. Want a drum roll? Yes, please. Okay. Well, I'm very excited to be doing the Q&A part. So like Faith said, candidates will sort of rotate through as far as who answers the question first. So I am going to try my best to keep track of that. But if I mess it up, please somebody correct me. So I'm going to draw questions out of here. At random, these were put into the box at the back of the room with Andrea at the start of the evening. Everyone will have 2 minutes max to answer. And again, at the 30-second mark, I will let you know when that is. Okay. So our first question is, and Chris, you're going to have the first response to this one. What experience or involvement have you had working with and advocating for youth in our community? Are we ready with the timer? Okay, over to you, Chris.
Yes. I haven't had a great deal of experience in this community advocating for youth, but I have led youth groups in the past, and I actually have written poetry about youth. So I don't know if that stands for advocacy or not, but I am very interested in the voice of youth and trying to get that voice heard. The NBNDP and the NDP in general is, generally speaking, concerned with social justice. We fight for the underdog, and I guess it's a question of who that underdog is. We fight for people with disabilities. We fight for the poor. We fight for the disadvantaged in any way, people who have health issues. And that fueled Tommy Douglas, and it fuels us as well. And so youth are disadvantaged in many ways, and unfortunately, youth programs come and go. We need more stability with those programs for youth. We need, because youth grow up, and then the programs seem to disappear. What we found is that social programs, generally speaking, are actually cost effective. So if you have, and they save taxpayer dollars as well, which is exciting. A lot of people don't realize that. There are evaluation methods now for social programs that are refined and that can develop best practices.
30 seconds.
Whether that's a program for youth or whether that's a program for any of the other disadvantaged groups that I've talked about.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. Ian, over to you.
Well, that's my bag. I've spent 20 years in the classroom. So I have seen every student from grade 6 to 12. I will see probably in the run of the year all of them. So for me, being an advocate, being a teacher and being in a classroom, having that responsibility, I've seen everything. I've been advocates for youth, whether it was, breakfast programs that they need, food that they need, with some things that have happened, within the last year, students needing clothes, students needing food, whether it's scholastics, whether it's academics, whether it's students at youth groups or students at church. My whole world has been surrounded by youth for 20 decades. So for me, even coming here in preliminary, meeting with youth, feeling the need that we have these conversations and we talk about them, but really, one of the biggest stakeholders that needs to be addressed is the youth. And so for me, I thought it was incumbent upon me and it was important for me to invite them to this situation, to open up the Magaguadavic place and They came, we had pizza, we chatted. It was getting a lot of information from them. So for me, I've spent the majority of my life being an advocate for the youth in classrooms and in various situations in all aspects. So I just continue to support that. So thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Patty.
Hi. As far as youth, when the kids were growing up and they were at Blacks Harbor School, I was president of the Home and School Association. That's been a long while ago, and went in and helped with the reading programs when you were allowed to go into the schools and help the elementary, it was elementary children, of course, help them with their reading. As of late, most of the work that I've done with youth has probably been mostly behind the scenes, helping them with mental health issues, helping families who reach out to you privately to, how to work around the system, how to get a loved one helped at the hospital, how to get a loved one into a facility so that they're safe, or how to get a family into counseling to help them when they have a loved one or a family member suffering with mental health issues. To me, that's the most important. As you know, I lost a daughter to suicide, so I find that the youth are falling through the cracks with things like that. We need more help for them. We need more funding to get them the help that they need, and it's like an unaddressed situation that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Patty.
In many ways, youth is the reason why I'm doing all of this, is because we kind of see a growing government involvement in people's lives, and a growing government involvement in people's ability to raise their children and their economic stability. We don't think that things should be getting more expensive. They should be getting way cheaper with technology. So the reason why we're doing all of this basically is to leave our province in better hands than they were when we grew up. So I'm here as a father, basically.
Thank you, Keith. Our next question. So, Ian, you will have first dibs on this one. What are your plans for improving the water? Do we have the timer? Okay, Ian.
Well, it's interesting. Both Patty and I had a meeting today with John Craig and Jason Gaudette, talking about their plans about what they plan to do in collaboration with Connors Brothers. Listen, they're planning to. There's a lot of strategy involved. There's a lot of infrastructure that they want to do. But the town really, I think, the municipality, really wants to take control and help out in the water situation. They have, there's funding, an IBA funding formula that they have done. They're planning to restructure some of the water lines in Connors Brothers, the perpetual problem in Beaver Harbor with the water. So, from our conversation this afternoon, it was a good conversation. It was about an hour and a half long. They're planning to get all of that done, to see all the stakeholders involved federally, provincially, and see how all that funding works. So for them, the municipality really has a desire. That is a top tier priority for them, the water situation. So they know it's existing. They know it's a problem. They're going to deal with it. And so the municipality is planning to look forward to that, getting it done. But then that's part one. And part two is now seeing how the province and federally will be able to sustain that and help them out. So it's ongoing.
30 seconds. Oh, perfect. Great timing. Before we go to you, Patty, someone has a bus blocked in the parking lot. So if you think that may be you, could you please move?
Has a what? A bus? A bus.
Okay. All right. Do we have the timer? Okay, Patty.
Ian's correct. We had a meeting today with Mayor Craig and Jason, and they talked about all the steps that have been going on behind the scenes to try to get the water situation in Blacks and, of course, Beaver Harbor looked after. And what they're looking for is support from the MLA that goes in to work with them to get funding, because it's going to cost a lot of money. Connors Brothers, as they explained, over the years there was like a 15-year dry spell where they went where nothing was worked on, nothing was looked after. So it's, it's like having a car for 15 years. If you don't do regular maintenance on it, you've got a problem. So what they're hoping to do is find an additional source of water besides the one that is located up in Penfield, and try to get those pipes and everything connected and get everything working so that they will have clear water. It passes all the health tests as far as drinking it, but it doesn't look very nice if you've turned a tap on a Blacks Harbor. And people are paying a lot of money with filtration systems and monthly things to put on their water in order to drink it. So it'll be a nice fix, and they're hoping that the provincial government will help and the federal government will step in as well.
Thank you, Patty. Keith, I'm sorry, I can't see you very well. But
So we do believe that this is a local issue. So Libertarians generally don't believe that any federal government or provincial government should be involved, but we should also not be taxing the localities as much. So that would free up way more resources for localities to be able to deal with local issues, right? So basically, yeah, that's basically my answer.
thanks, Keith. And Chris.
Yeah, I think water issues are very important. I mean, we have a right, I think, to safe water, to water that is drinkable, water that we can use for our everyday needs. If we don't have water, we're in trouble. So I think it's the NDP places value on basic necessities that we all have, and we all need them. I don't know the actual water situation in Blacks Harbor, but it sounds like it's pretty dire, and it sounds like it's been there for some time, and it also sounds like people have been working on it quite diligently, but nothing is happening. Why is that? For any kind of issue, you can use a problem-solving model. You can identify the problem, you can come up with options to deal with it, you can choose an option, you can evaluate the option, and then you can go back and redefine the problem if that's what you need to do. So in this case, obviously something is not working. Why is it not working? And why is this kind of thing persisting? I've noticed that the Chamber, just in looking at your website, that you're involved in Indigenous education, which is wonderful. And Indigenous communities have historically had great problems with this. So it's you're not the only ones. I mean, if you look at it in a broader range, a broader picture, there are people all over the world who are struggling with basic necessities: food, water, clothing. And if
30 seconds.
30 seconds. If you broaden your perspective, if you can, the NDP is really good at looking for the forest rather than the trees. If you broaden your perspective, the NDP would adopt the 30 by 30 conservation goal. 30 by 30 is a worldwide initiative for governments to designate 30% of Earth's land and ocean area as protected areas by 2030 to stop biodiversity loss, and that includes water. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Perfect timing. Okay. Patty, you'll kick us off for this one. How do you plan on lowering the cost of living in NB? We are the highest taxed with nothing to show. We have the timer. Over to you.
Hi, the Liberal platform under Susan Holt has some different ideas on affordability and how to lower prices. Again, property tax reform is going to help in that to make a more even distribution of taxes, and again, with an eye towards seniors, to lower the property taxes and have a fairer system of evaluating that. As well, on new builds, they're going to be reducing the PST on the new builds on multi-unit places to get people into housing, which also helps with the cost on the build. They're going to be removing the PST portion on the electricity bills for people in the province in order to make your power bills a little less costly. They also have an eye to removing the clean fuel tax that is there, that is able to be removed and put back onto big industry to help save a few cents at the gas pumps. And I'm trying to think of some other things on the platform for affordability. I'll just have to leave it there.
Great. Thank you, Patty.
So Libertarians would cut basically as much tax as possible. We are way overtaxed and way overregulated. So building a home, you can talk to any contractor, and it's nearly impossible to get a home built in a half decent time frame. So we would cut back that regulation a lot, because there's no point in having all these regulations if we have people that are on the verge of homelessness with any major crisis, and they can't afford to pay rent. So that's we would eliminate as much tax as possible. If possible, eliminate the property tax, starting with anyone over 65, because they've paid it their entire lives. Yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Keith. Chris?
Yes. If you look at the platform that will be released momentarily, probably, or at least within the next few days with the NBNDP, you'll see a section called Homes You Can Afford. And that deals with the need to cap rent increases, to build public housing, to expand tenant rights, to limit municipal property tax increases, to build market housing, to tackle growing homelessness. And I think that is actually a very detailed plan. I like it. In terms of reducing the cost of living, we're also looking at more jobs with better wages, a $20 minimum wage, for example, green jobs, supporting small business, a farmers marketing board. We'll work in consultation with the farming community to establish a farmers marketing board for strategic agricultural products. And all of those things are important for helping with the cost of living. We'll support the skilled trades. We believe in rights for gig workers. We'll invest in productivity enhancing infrastructure. And we'll support New Brunswick industries. And we'll create an industrial strategy, a made in New Brunswick industrial strategy, and create high-wage, value-added processing jobs. We'll repeal
30 seconds.
How much? 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
We'll repeal Bill 17, which interfered with the collective bargaining process to undermine pension benefits for public sector workers. And we'll ensure that all new major infrastructure projects have community benefits agreements that ensure workers are paid fairly and adequate opportunities are given to disadvantaged communities.
Thank you, Chris. Ian?
As a father of two daughters, the thought of having them live with me forever is a little disconcerting. I love them, but listen, I agree. The whole property tax, the whole tax, it's just from coast to coast is an issue. For the progressive conservatives, listen, the government has established already a permanent spike for protection for most properties that grow or exceed 10%. Seniors can actually apply to freeze their property tax amount for the time that they live in their homes. The whole HST, the reduction in taxes, so again, 14% in 2025, and then again, 13%, going down to 13% in the budget year of 2026. So when fully implemented, it should save individuals about $1,000 a year. Now, is it perfect? No. Listen, coast to coast, we're dealing with issues, but with that implemented, that will certainly help most individuals out. So for us, with the sound fiscal management that the progressive conservatives had, we're continuing to save, we're continuing to invest, we're continuing to build, and we're tackling those issues of taxes, specifically with seniors, specifically with property tax assessments that increase of 10%, and then in addition with the HST reduction scheduled in the budget for 2025 and 2026.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Okay. So Keith, you'll be first up for this one. Eastern Charlotte has lost many doctors in the past few years. Healthcare in our area is almost non-existent. How do you plan to help our community? What incentives can you give to retain healthcare professionals for long-term, not just as a stepping stone? Keith.
Yeah, so we're actually advocating for a overhaul of the medical industry in New Brunswick. So if you Google the best healthcare systems on earth, Singapore is always at the top of this. So Singapore has a private model that has a savings account. So you can so there's competition within hospitals and doctors. So your wait times are cut way down because they're all competing for your money. But then there's a savings account that's that everyone pays into that helps pay for it. And prices are really low. There's the 3Ms. So there's Meta. Knew I was going to forget this. Sorry. There's Meta Fund, Meta Shield, and Meta Save. So these three, without explaining it all the way, I would encourage people to look up the Singapore system. It's always at the very top of the list as healthcare care quality in the world. Yeah. Anyway, that's everything.
Thank you, Keith. Chris.
I would take a look not only at Singapore, but at Cuba. Cuba has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, and one of the things they do in Cuba is recruit from their own communities. They recruit doctors from each community, and they have free medical school as well. And they have more doctors than a lot of other countries, and they have exported their doctors, like during the COVID-19 crisis, they exported their doctors to other countries. And they cooperate internationally with other countries with biotech advances and other medical advances. And they integrate the qualifications of the doctors with those of other countries as well. So there's kind of more of a back and forth that can happen. I visited Cuba in person last year, and I went on a government tour of their services, and I was impressed with their medical service. There are wonderful doctors. Even in the hotel that I was staying at, they had a doctor there. I got sick at that time, and the doctor was able to care for me quite well. So there are international models out there, and I agree with you on that. And I think, again, the big message of the NDP is to think of the forest rather than the trees. I think we get lost in the details, and I think if we have a wider vision for Medicare. As I began to say right at the start, that with Tommy Douglas's Medicare, he was able to... 30 seconds? He was able to get more doctors, and eventually they were better paid than other doctors in Canada, which was wonderful. I think the Medicare system has been eroded, and I think that that's a big part of the problem. And I think that you need an MLA who's going to fight for Medicare and for its full implementation. Progressive, conservative, and liberal governments have eroded Medicare, unfortunately, and that includes doctors and its availability and their availability.
Thank you, Chris. Ian.
Elizabeth, could you repeat the question? I just want to make sure it's accurate.
Certainly. Eastern Charlotte has lost many doctors in the past few years. Healthcare in our area is almost non-existent. How do you plan to help our community? What incentives can you give to retain healthcare professionals for long-term, not just as a stepping stone?
I guess, well, first of all, any doctor that's coming out of medical school, their debt is massive. Most of them have high amounts of debt. A lot of them have families. So again, the Progressive Conservatives, the incentive that we have set up is to, financial incentives for doctors to see more patients. And again, to help doctors out, the Progressive Conservatives are expanding, in fact, their scope for nurse practitioners, nurses, psychiatric nurses, paramedics, and pharmacists. However, in addition to that, I think that it really, we're at the point where it needs to be collaborative, and we need to get all stakeholders involved. So the province is offering incentives, but I also think the municipalities play a role in how they can foster, how they can retain, give incentives to doctors to keep doctors coming. So I feel that, provincially, we're on the right track. We're doing that, but I also feel it also has to be a collaborative nature, that the province also needs to consult and talk with the municipality of how they can take primary care physicians and keep them there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And Patty.
There's a lot on the healthcare front on the Liberal platform. First, it starts by supporting the workers that support the doctors to keep them in the community. So with retention bonuses paid to the nurses that will keep them here to help support the doctors. There's also, in the latest announcement, increases to the PSW's regular wages in order to keep them here to help support the doctors. Now, with the collaborative care centers that the Liberal government is planning on building, if some of them aren't already built, like in St. Stephen, you will go, that's going to be one of the first ones. You will go there and say you have a doctor's appointment, you will see the doctor. Then you can go down the hall and you can get your blood work done. Then you can go down the hall if you need to see a physiotherapist. It's a one-stop shop for everything there, with the highlight being that there will be admin in the building because a complaint from doctors is a work-life balance. They want to see more patients. They can't see them because they're overloaded with an outdated Medicare system for billing, and they're overloaded with the paperwork because some people are electronic, some people are not. And what they want to do is let doctors see their patients, let somebody else handle the paperwork to reduce the stress on doctors, because doctors coming out want that work-life balance. So we have a candidate, John Dornan, who's been a
30
specialist
seconds.
for over 40 years, and he knows how to address these problems. The other thing is they're going to put 10 more seats in each of the facilities to have more space for doctors, medical seats at the universities, and a mental health advocate, which should help, take that load off of doctors.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Patty. Okay, this is question number 5. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses. This is going great. Yeah? So Chris will be back for this very interesting question. I'm excited to hear the responses to this one. We have our timer. Okay, the question is, why do you want to be an MLA? Chris.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking that I wanted to be an MLA at all, and somebody asked me if I would consider it. And I have been thinking actually very seriously about what would happen if I were actually elected. And it's kind of an exciting proposition if you think about it. It's not, running for office isn't something that I think most people really think about that much, and until somebody maybe approaches them and asks them if they would consider it. And I've always been in love with the NB, NDP, and the NDP in general. And I've worked on NDP campaigns before, never thinking of myself as a possible candidate. So I'm here really to promote the Tommy Douglas vision of Medicare, to promote the idea that social programs can save money, and if by chance, by some strange chance, I would be elected, I would fight tirelessly on your behalf. But I don't know if I can convince you of that tonight. I can understand why this old guy comes in and is saying he wants to run for MLA, why you might be a little skeptical about that. But it would be an exciting adventure, actually, at this place and stage in my life to be in that legislature. The NDP want a seat at the table. Really, they're looking for just getting 1 or 2 MLAs in there. We have about 20-some candidates, 22 or 23 candidates. And we have a couple of ridings where we might possibly win. There are NDP governments right now in Manitoba and in BC, and there have been NDP governments in across the country: Nova Scotia, Ontario, Yukon, Saskatchewan. Alberta. So every once in a while, surprisingly enough, NDP
I'm sorry,
MLAs are
Chris.
elected.
We're at
Yes.
time.
Okay.
Hate to cut you off. Thank you. Ian.
Well, why do I want to be an MLA? Well, listen, for me, it comes down to this. I've grown up here. I've brought up here, live here, teach here, raised my family here. And for me, I've just gotten to the point where I really feel that me stepping into this is the best way that I know how to say thank you to everybody that's ever invested me in this community. And quite honestly, you see cars drive on the highway, and I said this way back at the nomination. For me, this riding is, listen, I think it's the best kept secret in the province of New Brunswick. And I'm tired of that notion of, we're a diamond in the rough. I don't want to be in the rough anymore. I want the diamond to show. I want everyone to realize what it is, what they're sitting on. And so if there's any part of me that can just be continue to be a voice, to be an advocate for this riding, and to see that this riding comes into the fruition and the destiny that I believe it has, I will do anything I can to make that happen. So for me, being an MLA is not an evolution of Ian. It is an act of servanthood, and that's what I plan to do.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ian. Patty.
This is an easy one. I would love to be the MLA because I'm a helper and I'm a fixer and I'm a great fixer and I'm a good listener and I want to feed people. I want to help get people off the streets. I want to get clean drinking water. I want to bring recognition to this great riding that, has now been cast aside and called a rural riding, and we don't get the financial help from the province, and, we don't get everything that we used to get when it was towns and villages. So I want to be that MLA because I want to help with mental health issues. I want people to be healthy, and I want people to be happy here. And I want everybody, to have food in their belly. And I want people to look after our seniors because we have our Fundy nursing home. They're down there. They have no contract and the workers are leaving and there's no one there to help the seniors at all. I want, I'm tired of the spraying. I want better laws to help for people that abuse animals. Like I have so many things that I would like to do as MLA because I can help now. And I've been helping do things for years, but I just feel as an MLA, you'll have more authority, more help, and you'll have more resources and revenue to help people in this community to make it flourish better and to make things better and life easier on people.
Thanks, Patty. Keith.
I do not want to be MLA. But I feel that it was important that there was a voice against ever-growing government and ever-growing taxes. I think our taxes are, at the end of the day, we probably pay over half of our money in taxes. And we didn't really see that voice anywhere. And all through COVID, there wasn't really a voice that said, what about individual rights? No one really said anything. So there was a large group of us all across the province that said, why don't we just have our own party that'll be our goal. No matter what the issue, we'll fight for rights. So that's what we did. And I never planned on being in politics, but as a good friend of mine once said, if not us, then who?
Thank you, Keith. Oh, inspiring messages, everyone. Our next question, Ian, you'll be the first to answer this one. What initiatives is your party bringing to the table to benefit future generations in New Brunswick? So don't feel you have to, I know that might be a little bit redundant from an earlier question about youth. So with any of these, don't feel you have to use the full length of time, but at your discretion. Ian.
Well, firstly, if everybody knows what's happening, our average age of this province has dropped. People are, there was the big exodus of people leaving. Now you have a lot of youth returning. So a lot of the things that are happening, people are, the old license plate where it said the Pitcher province, people that are leaving are starting to recognize that and come back. The increase in the job market. increase in development of a lot of youth are returning because they like what's happening, especially in the education facet. Still people are concerned about taxes, but they still want to come back. They want to invest in their province. So the things that that are happening, we are the largest reduction in the HST in all of the Maritimes. So that's an incentive for people to come. Opportunities that are there, job growth is increasing. Lots of things that are happening in this province to bring the youth back. And I think really, I can't speak for them. I can't speak on their behalf. But what I think youth are starting to see is that what they have in their own backyard. And the things that they try to leave and go, they're starting to see the incentives that are here in the province for them. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ian.
Can you
Patty?
repeat it one more time so I'm not answering wrong here?
Yes, sure. Oh, goodness. Now, where did I put it? Okay. What initiatives is your party bringing to the table to benefit future generations in New Brunswick?
Okay, that's what I thought. One of the things is to start respecting our teachers and our educators. And for us, that means getting children into classrooms that are not overflowing, getting the EAs into the classrooms that people need so that people can learn, bringing in a universal breakfast program and a pay-as-you-can lunch program in order, to give the youth some sort of future. So they're going to school, they have food in their belly, and they're able to learn because, as you know, every statistic shows if you're hungry, you cannot learn. So with an eye towards the future, that is one thing, is to improve what's going on in the education system. Another thing is, again, the improvement on internet and cell phone coverage. Now, whether that's for an eye to the future or not, but if you can't come here and work, say, remotely, or you can't do your business online, or you can't do your schooling online, or whatever it is that brings youth in and keeps youth here, as in learning, as in more seats at the community colleges or more seats at the university to keep them here. That's what we need to do to keep them here. And a better healthcare system is going to keep everybody here, because right now, with no family doctors and that, nobody wants to come, and everybody's afraid to move here because of the family doctors. If you have one, you hold on to it, but our numbers are 182,000 with no family doctors. So we need to do something to correct that to keep people here.
30 seconds. Oh, good. Thank you.
Could you read the question again? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. What initiatives is your party bringing to the table to benefit future generations in New Brunswick?
Yeah, our party, again, we want to reduce taxes as much as possible, reduce government interference in building homes, and even educating your children. We think that school choice is a good idea. So the government spends about $15,000, and that's looking like it's going to go up a little bit on education per student. We think it wouldn't be a bad idea to give it to the parents and let them choose how their child is educated. And again, this gives competition to schools, so they have to compete for that money, right? Without a top-down approach, we think that alone would be a huge benefit to all New Brunswickers. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Chris?
Yeah, three things for better schools and an affordable education for the generations to come. First, free school lunches for all K-12 public school students. Second, 20% lower tuition fees for all New Brunswick College, university, and graduate students. And third, 1,500 new $10 a day childcare spaces. And then there's a whole bunch of environmental initiatives, but I won't go into those right at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Patty, you'll kick us off for this one. Healthcare, education, and policing needs to be important upon. How do you propose this is done?
Healthcare, what's the second one?
I think it says important, but I guess we'll surmise improved, probably. Healthcare, education, and policing needs to be improved upon. How do you propose this is done? Patty?
Okay, healthcare, it sounds repetitive. The collaborative care centers, of course, the retention of nurses, making it easier on doctors, just respecting our healthcare workers in as far as wages, in as far as the work-life balance, and making it more accessible to bring that number down of the people in the province that do not have primary caregivers. As far as education, again, there's a universal plan to have the breakfast and the lunch pay-as-you-go program for the schools. Also, right now we're in a crisis with teacher shortage. And right now we have a lot of, I think the number was 132 private civilians teaching kids, so they're not certified as a teacher would be. But the number of teachers that are leaving, the number of nurses that are leaving, but the number of teachers that are leaving with all the disrespect thrown at the teachers right now and everything that they've got to deal with, they're not teaching the 3 R's that we might have grown up with when we were growing up. There's so much more going on with behavioral issues and everything else, and they're getting no support for that whatsoever. And as far as policing, I feel sorry for the police because the courts are so backed up, everything's so backed up that when it comes
30 seconds.
When it comes to policing, they do what they can to fix what's happening, but then it gets to the courts and then it gets thrown out or it gets a long time period. And a lot of the things locally with vandalism and that, it all starts with a mental health issue and addictions.
Thank you, Patty. Keith?
Yeah, so I'll start with police. We think it would be a good idea to have locally elected police chiefs, so that way there's accountability. And if the police aren't doing their job, it can be rolled over. And the same goes with like judges and everything else. The more local, the better, because there's more accountability that way. That's how we see things. With education, again, we think that the school choice idea is a good idea because it brings competition, and whenever two entities are competing for your money, the quality and the service always goes up. And again, just Google top healthcare systems in the world, and you'll always see Singapore at the top of almost every list you see. And really look into their system because it's really good. So that's everything.
Thank you, Keith. Chris?
Just the question one more time.
Sure. Healthcare, education, and policing need to be improved upon. How do you propose this is done?
Okay, so we believe that world-class healthcare should be the reality for New Brunswick. World-class healthcare. That is not exactly what we have now, with people dying in emergency wards and people on huge waiting lists and people not being able to get surgery, and it is a crisis. We'll tackle the nursing shortage. We'll match PEI's wage bonuses for new recruits, including rural area and student loan compensation packages. We'll expand the healthcare professional training and certification. We'll work with universities and the New Brunswick Medical Association to fund new training seats for every kind of healthcare professional. And we'll fund community care clinics. We'll fund lots of community care clinics. More than 23,000 people are on the wait list for a family doctor and forced to visit emergency departments for issues that could be addressed by a primary care provider if they had access to one. We'll follow the recommendations of the New Brunswick Nurses Union and the New Brunswick Medical Society to build at least 50 primary care clinics in communities across the province. So those are just some of the things that we will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Ian?
Currently, there are already 50 clinics that exist within this province that the Progressives Conservatives have set up. So that's one of our incentives to help with the healthcare. Again, incentives to retain doctors, expanding the scope of pharmacists and paramedics. There's recently been a memorandum of understanding that was signed with partners in Indonesia to recruit more nurses because we're having a nurses shortage. So those are incentives that we're doing for the healthcare to try to tackle that. When it comes down to education, I will disagree with one point that I have never felt not supported. My administrators have always been very good in the classroom to me in whatever endeavor that I had. For education, it really comes down to continuing a collaboration with the MBTA, which is the New Brunswick Teachers Association, which is already happening in policies and in curriculum development. And also there is a recent development in Crandall University. When you're talking about shortages of teachers, Crandall has now had a new online education degree program, which they are offering for people to segue who've had experiences as EAs or other endeavors and want to move into the education program. So for education, that is what is happening. And when it comes down to policing, not only does the province play a role, municipalities play a role. Of course, they have to talk to include public safety and decide what their best approach is for policing. Some municipalities have contracts with the RCMP. Some municipalities have their own police force, so I guess every municipality would need to decide what the best approach is for them and to approach the province and having that discourse and discussion on how to approach it.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Get right down to the bottom here. Okay. So, Patty, we're going to be back to you to answer this one first. Am I correct? Keith, sorry, my apologies. I knew I would do that at least once. Thank you. Patty heard the question mark in my voice. In Eastern Charlotte, there is a shortage of housing. The area can't grow and expand if we have nowhere for people to live. How would you work to relieve the housing problem? Keith.
Again, we would repeal as much regulation as we can safely do, obviously. It's important to talk to like developers and stuff across the province to see what the worst wait times are and the worst things are getting in the way. Get rid of the double tax, and again, eventually get rid of the property tax completely. It's about 20% of the entire government budget, and we can cut that wastefulness pretty easily, we feel. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Chris.
Okay. So again, we'll cap rent increases. We'll immediately cap residential rent increases at no more than 2% each year. We'll build public housing. We'll dedicate more than $120 million in our first budget to clear the wait list for social housing by building and acquiring 11,000 public housing units. We'll build market housing. We'll phase out exclusionary zoning and allow for taller and denser housing development in our cities and near public transit. Well, I guess that's a city issue, really. And then we'll tackle growing homelessness by adopting the successful Housing First strategy with the goal of eliminating chronic homelessness by 2030. And there are lots more things. All of this in the NB-NDP platform has been costed as well. You can see what we're allocating for each initiative that we're proposing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ian.
Well, again, to reiterate, the Progressive Conservatives, we made the commitment for the housing strategy, which includes 6,000 units per year by 2030, and 30,000 units will be built. In addition to that, speaking with Mayor John Craig and Jason Gaudette today about the water issue, a lot of their what came out of that was basically, the opportunity for a lot of development, a lot of new investment, a lot of new houses, but that was held back. Really, the caveat to that was having the water and the infrastructure in place to support that. So, from my perspective, what I would be an advocate to help support the municipality, really to get the infrastructure in place, to get the water in place, so that the housing development can start. So that's what I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Patty.
Well, number one, I believe whoever goes in as the MLA is going to have to make sure their number one priority is to work with the municipality to make sure that some of the ongoing projects or the projects that have been stalled for various reasons, they have to work with them to get those back off the ground and get some of the affordable, the affordable units built. It's not like we have apartment buildings or dozens of vacant houses here to start moving people into. There is nothing available, so it's got to be built from the ground up. So maybe working on whether the municipality can ease or loosen some of the bylaws that, make it a little tougher to build or make it a little harder to build. So the MLA is going to have to work with the municipality to get working on that. Also, the PST reduction on new builds for multi-unit buildings, that should go a long way in helping people if you can remove that tax to get the multi-unit facilities built. There is, not that it's going to help with that, but there is a 3% rent cap that will be put in place by the Liberals to keep people in the apartments that they do have so they're not forced out with the higher rents. And I guess basically really is working with the municipality, finding if there's more funding with the RDC or whoever it might be to help make it easier and to free up some funding to get some houses built and get people into the area by offering more things.
Great. Thank you, Patty. All right. So we're back up to the head of the line with you, Chris, for this next question. What are your plans on the housing issues for immigrants? Are the current costs of renting houses practical? Chris?
Yeah, some of the questions have elements of repetition in them. But again, we want people to have homes that they can afford. And immigrants, we're very supportive of immigrants. I said earlier that the NDP, the NBNDP, is very much in favor of the underdog. And people who are refugees coming from other countries, even people who are specialists coming from other countries, adapting to this culture, adapting to any culture is a real challenge. And so we need to actually give them a break when it comes to housing, for sure, and help them get settled and help them integrate into this society. That is a huge challenge for anybody, and I have great empathy for anybody who's, if you can imagine if you suddenly had to move to China or if you suddenly had to move to who knows where, that it would be extremely challenging to adapt. Sometimes they have to learn a new language. The education system is different. The political system can be different. So I think immigrants their needs need to be looked at immediately. And I think there is something Maslow said years ago, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You probably studied that in Psychology 101. The basic need that we all have is for food, for shelter.
30 seconds.
And then we have higher needs. But if those lower needs are not met, then we're in trouble. So all of the things that we're doing around housing, homes you can afford, capping rent increases, building public housing, building market housing, tackling growing homelessness, expanding tenant rights, limiting municipal property tax increases, all of that stuff applies to immigrants too, of course.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Ian.
So there does need to be a distinction between immigrants and asylum seekers. I will say that a lot of folks that are coming invest, contribute income. You'll notice lately that the progressive conservatives have stated that they are concerned. Listen, we already have strains in the province on housing, education, healthcare. And back in July, in Halifax, the Federation of Premiers, so not just Premier Higgs, we're talking about coast to coast, we're talking about premiers, we're talking about premiers of provinces, representatives in the Northwest Territories, all expressed a concern about how Ottawa has a policy to distribute the asylum seekers, and that each province is to take and retain more. New Brunswick has been stated as earmarked for taking 4,600. If you break down the math, there's 49 ridings within this province, so if you divide 4,600 by 49, that roughly gives you 94 individuals in the riding. That's going to be a strain. When you think about education, when you think about income and health, and it's already being seen. So for immigrants, listen, I agree with all those tax incentives that were mentioned that should be there. But when it comes down to asylum seekers, every premier, every representative of the provinces and the territories
30
agreed there should be
seconds.
a review of how that is happening, and how 235,000 folks, how they are equally distributed among the provinces. So thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Patty.
So Elizabeth, the question was on housing for immigrants.
What are your plans on the housing issues for immigrants? Are the current costs of renting houses practical?
Okay, yeah. So for here in this riding, again, we don't have the housing. It is kind of not a repetitive question, but it's kind of been answered earlier with the housing. But one thing that I failed to mention earlier that was exciting, in one of the healthcare platforms, which is not about housing, the Liberal government plans on taking a look at immigrants who are here and looking at their certification in the light of healthcare workers, in the light of doctors, in the light of, educators, and things that the New Brunswick government perhaps right now will not allow, or you have to go back to school for 3 years or whatever. So if we can look at those people with an eye to looking at their certification, bring them in to a good paying job, will that help with housing right here in this community? I think if you're a millionaire, it wouldn't help, because we need more housing. You can offer it to anybody, but if there's no housing, there's no housing. So it's one of those things, working with the municipality, working with reducing tax. We have to get the houses built, whether you're an immigrant or whether you're just a local person. People are couch surfing. There is no housing available.
Thanks, Patty. Keith.
So I think it's already kind of been answered, but I will. I wanted to touch on rent caps, and the problem we see with rent caps is when you cap rents, then landlords can't make any profit, and then so their taxes keep going up, right? Their property taxes keep rising, but they can't up the rent, which is a big part of it. I don't really believe that landlords just randomly get really greedy once in a while and up the rent right at the same time the federal government pumps a bunch of money into circulation, right? So one problem I see with rent caps is that once that becomes unaffordable, then usually these big conglomerates have to come in and buy these properties, or the government has to take over the properties. So we're kind of hurting our community. So instead of rent caps, we should be upping production of housing by getting rid of regulations and overtaxation. That's it.
Thank you, Keith. Okay, Ian, you will have first hand at this one. What is your plan for seniors' medical coverage on all medications? Ian.
Well, that was a curveball. I did not see that coming. Well, listen, I don't even profess to be an expert on this area, but I don't know. Darn, you caught me off guard. I will say this: having two parents that are in their 70s, and one that has just been sent to Lyncourt Manor, I'm all for having affordability and Medicare covered as best as it can. I have two parents. They're in that situation where, sorry, I'm just having a moment. They're in that situation where they need those incentives. And so, again, for me, if there's anything that I can do, or the party, and I must admit, I did not research that, but if there's something that I can do to help seniors get the help that they need and get a reduction in their Medicare coverage, I will certainly do that. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Patty.
That's a different question. That's a good question. Seniors are often marginalized, and again, with an eye to trying to keep seniors in their home to reduce costs. Does that give them any more money for meds? Probably not. But we need to have an eye to seniors at reducing those costs because they've paid taxes all their life. Now, do I have a plan from the Liberal government provincially that is going to talk about that or face that? No, I do not. But having said that, we ran into a lady, a gentleman and a lady, and it's even different than healthcare. And she had to have a photo ID, and this still sticks in my mind about seniors and how they work all their lives, they pay in, and then all of a sudden they don't matter and they're still getting charged insane prices. So she wanted to open a bank account for her granddaughter. And she went to the bank to open an account. Well, she needed photo ID. She didn't drive and she didn't have a passport. So she had to go to Service New Brunswick, and this is another thing I've mentioned to Susan Holt. She had to go to Service New Brunswick and pay $65 to get a photo ID done in order to open up a bank account for her granddaughter because she didn't possess a driver's license. It's a senior, it's a photo, it's a piece of plastic, and it's insane what we're doing to seniors. So with an eye to that, this is a great question. It's something I'll mark down and say to Susan, what are we going to do for seniors for their health care plans? Because they are left out.
Thank you, Patty. Keith.
So I moved here from Moncton. Before that, I lived in St. John, so I lived all over the province. And Charlotte County specifically are really, really giving people. And I believe like a lot of these problems would not even be an issue if the tax base wasn't overtaxed. So the middle class, the people who are working and still earning money, because they would be able to help people out. And everyone in Charlotte County is like really giving people. So I don't think, I think voluntary charity is the best way to do that. But no one can donate to charity if everyone's just barely scraping by. That's it.
Thank you, Keith. And Chris.
Okay, I just want to take a moment to say I think it's great that everybody's hanging in here because, I mean, some of these issues are really complicated. And, you know, putting myself in your shoes, trying to assess the answers of each individual person on each issue and then trying to figure out, you know, do I agree with that or do I, you know, it's not easy. So anyway, this is what we would do. The question is about seniors' medications. Can you repeat that again?
Sure. What is your plan for seniors' medical coverage on all medications?
Okay. We would expand the New Brunswick drug plan. We will take tangible, immediate steps toward building universal pharmacare by eliminating all premium costs for those enrolled in the existing public New Brunswick drug plan. And we'll also begin automatically enrolling people without existing prescription drug coverage into the program when they renew their Medicare cards. Okay, did you get that? So we're going to expand the New Brunswick drug plan, and that, of course, would include seniors. And being a senior, I think I can really relate to that. We would keep the option open to opt out, and we would pay for this by increasing the tax on insurance company profits to the same rates as Newfoundland and Labrador are already doing.
Thank you, Chris. And I'll echo Chris's sentiments. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there. A lot of different, very relevant topics. And a reminder, this portion of the evening is gonna go till 8:15, okay? So keep hanging in there. Patty, you will go first on this question. Do we have our timer? What are your thoughts on immigration? Patty.
Immigration into the province, I'm assuming, is what the question is, or immigration into the country. I'm not sure which we're talking about. Immigration into the province, I'm all for immigration, and as you know, our present premier has mentioned, the amount of people that came into the province during COVID, immigrants and others that moved here, increased by almost 100,000. And it's great to have, to grow your population base, because then you can grow your tax base and then you can grow your revenues. But when you bring people in and you're unprepared, and you don't have the schools for them, and you don't have the health care for them, and you don't have the hospitals for them, and you definitely don't have the housing for them, then we have a big problem. So I think we've got to fix the problems that we have right now and look after the messes that we've got presently before we add any more messes to it. So I think we really need to buckle down and address what's going on and get the ship righted now and then carry on from there.
Thank you, Patty. Keith.
It's a really, really broad question, but I mean, in general, I'm pro-immigration. I think government subsidized immigration is a bad idea, and the reason they use is that we need it economically. And then you ask yourself, why do we need it economically? Well, New Brunswickers aren't having children. Well, why are they not having children? Because a lot of New Brunswickers don't really see a good future. So a lot of young people I know will say they don't want to bring kids into this world, or things are getting harder and harder. So I think that's the root issue that we need to address. I know that kind of went off of immigration, but that's kind of what I think we should really address. That's it.
That's great, Keith. Thanks. Chris.
Okay, I don't think he'd mind my saying this. I hope he doesn't anyway. Our leader, Alex White, I know worked for the Newcomers Center with the YMCA, and I think that was a great experience for him because he had to host people coming into the province and into the country and help get them settled. And I'm also very impressed with the skills that immigrants bring. They have tremendous skills, and we need those skills, and they can really help us. It's a tragedy that there are so many doctors so many cab drivers who are highly skilled who sometimes can't find work, including in the medical care system, because their credentials from another country don't seem to apply to the situation here. So I'm impressed with if you get cross-cultural education in any way, either by traveling or by learning. My background is in counseling and social work, and I've counseled immigrants, and I've counseled refugees, and I've counseled people who are highly skilled and people with hardly any skills. And the diversity in this life, in this world, is incredible if you open your mind to it. It's wonderful to travel. It's wonderful to learn a new language. And cultural diversity is something to be celebrated. And I think that we need to have more of a connection with the world around us and to stop all of the conflict in the world. I mean, it's kind of a related topic because a lot of the conflict in the world is because different cultures don't understand each other. And then there's this us versus them kind of thing that starts to happen. So I think we need to educate ourselves to be cross-cultural, to increase our cross-cultural awareness. And that's a very rich thing, so that we can, I'm in favor of diversity and cross-cultural education.
Thank you, Chris. And Ian.
Listen, it's already been stated. I think immigration is great. It increases our income, increases our tax base, a lot of contributions. Listen, for this area, really, our aquaculture industry is probably as vibrant as it is because of a lot of help from folks coming from other places. I will say this: when we're getting into it and we talk about strains on housing and healthcare and education, those strains exist, but it's not because of what the province isn't doing. It's really because of policies at a federal level that are being pushed to all the provinces to take in back to the asylum seekers. So it's not just Premier Higgs, Tim Houston of Nova Scotia, Danielle Smith of Alberta, Scott Moe of Saskatchewan. They have all voiced concerns. And again, as a repetition, back in July at the Federation meeting of Premiers in Halifax, every one of them had a collective statement which they felt there needed to be a reevaluation and a reassessment of how those 235,000 folks come and how they're distributed. So every province is taking them, but again, back to the housing and healthcare and education, it is putting strain on it. But we need, we'd love to do that, but how do we have the incentive to help us to see that through? Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, Keith, you'll be first on this one. What are your views concerning our unsheltered in our community and keeping seniors in their homes? Broad scope on this one.
Yeah. So the homelessness problem, again, a lot of it comes from not being able to build homes, so the cost of living being much higher. There's also a general sense of hopelessness with a lot of people, that they, like, once they've hit the rock bottom, we'll say, that there's no way to climb back up. So economic mobility is really important for any society. And what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
And keeping seniors in their homes.
Yeah. So again, we'd like to completely end property taxes, and we could begin with the seniors because they've been paying the most, obviously, and they've been paying most of their lives. Yeah, so that'd be a good start. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Chris,
So the first part of that question again was?
what are your views concerning our unsheltered in our community? And then the second part is, and keeping seniors in their homes.
Okay, so I assume that there's a connection between the first part of that question and the second part of that question then?
Two questions written on the same card. I
okay.
have no more context than that.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about the second part of the question. I have a mother who is in, I don't want to, because this is a public thing, I don't want to get too personal here, but she has great needs, but she's still in my sister's home in Grafton, outside of Woodstock. And community care workers come in and care for her almost every day. And they interact with her, they sit with her, they help her with all of her needs, and she has a great many needs. And I'm impressed with that. I think that's something that seems to be working. With these kinds of forums, of course, we're all critical of one another, and we don't usually give one another credit. But that's something that is working. The fact that those workers are coming into the home, they're interacting with her, and they're keeping her mind alive and alert. And that's something that I personally really appreciate, and that's something that needs to continue, and that actually could be strengthened. Respite care really needs to be strengthened. Respite care for my sister, for example, she's working and she's caring for my mom.
30
and it's
seconds.
Challenging for her. So, and I don't know why respite care is so challenging. Like, it seems that sometimes, I don't know, sometimes the healthcare system seems to, when they talk about necessities, Medicare is supposed to provide for our healthcare necessities. Well, they really are stringent about that necessity part, right? And we need to be more imaginative, I think, and expand our vision.
Thank you, Chris. Ian.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. 2 questions. So what are your views concerning our unsheltered in our community and keeping seniors in their homes?
Okay, I guess for me, listen, when it comes down to the unsheltered, the progressive, I don't know, I'm not, by all means, I'm not an expert. I have a concern, though, with unsheltered homelessness, addictions. The progressive conservatives have just recently put forth a compassionate care intervention legislation, and I think that's going to help a lot of folks who are suffering from addiction and homelessness to get them to the help that they actually need. When it comes to seniors, again, many seniors have been living in their houses for years. It's the old homesteads, everywhere in. Especially up my way in Bonnie River, everybody has the old homestead. So if there's an incentive that can be kept, for example, right now the Progressive Conservatives have said that seniors can apply to freeze their property tax amount for the time that they actually live in their home. So I think that is a huge step to help the seniors retain and be able to stay in their housing. I also feel that it's a twofold thing. I'd probably also the amount of things that are happening in healthcare to be able to more incentives for the folks in healthcare, faster access to healthcare, more expanding practices of practitioners to be able to foster and to facilitate seniors to be able to stay
30
in
seconds.
their houses. So, thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Ian. Patty.
Hi. Okay, I'll answer the senior portion first. It's kind of been answered earlier. By allowing the property tax reform with an eye to keeping seniors in their home by keeping their property tax rate in accordance with what their income is coming in. And then upon the sale of that home, then it would come to fair market value that you would pay the taxes that should be paid on that. So with an eye to reducing what's going on with the tax bill, because when you're talking to seniors at the door, they want to stay in their homes, and most of them are healthy. They don't need medical care. They just want to stay there, but they can't keep all the bills with insurance and property tax and heating bills and everything. So they need help with that. So as far as that, and today there was an announcement on the Liberal platform that starting, if elected, $250 a month will be given to the caregivers for seniors, because right now they're not recognized. So if you have someone in your home or you're looking after somebody and you're not a PSW, you're not an LPN, you're not an RN, you're not compensated for it. So with an eye to increasing the wages for PSWs who do most of that work, and with an eye to looking after the caregivers who look after people in their homes. Now, the next part about homelessness. Homelessness, people don't grow up, don't get born and decide they want to be homeless. And society needs to stop looking down on people that are homeless. And everybody homeless, it's not all as a result of an addiction.
30 seconds.
It's not all as a result of an addiction. And I have to disagree with the PC platform of incarcerating people who somebody else deems or judges to be unfit mentally for whatever reason. We need to have more support for people with mental health issues. We need to have more support for people with addictions. Everybody starts out with a wrinkle. Something's happened to put them there.
Thank you, Patty. Okay, Chris, back up to you for first kick at this one. What do you see as the biggest issue facing our community? And what are your specific plans to... Sorry, let me just try this again. What do you see as the biggest issue facing our community? And what are your specific plans to address the issue? My apologies.
Yeah, there is a kind of a little bit of repetition in the questions because obviously my personal thing is healthcare, but a lot of people see that as their personal issue. I think healthcare is a really, really important issue, and I've already talked about what we would do with that, so I'll just pass for the rest of the question.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Ian.
For me, the three things that stand out to me, and again, much like Chris, that they've already been addressed. We've already talked about them. One, especially in this area, water, access to potable water, to great water, to clean water. The other one that has come up, policing seems to be an ongoing issue, which we've talked about, and also healthcare, the ongoing issues with healthcare. So those are the three things that, for me, they constantly stand out, and we've talked about how to address them and deal with them.
Thank you. Patty?
Knocking on doors for months, I have to agree with these two that the number one thing that comes up at each of the doors is health care. Whether it's no family doctor, whether it's wait time for hip surgery or cataract surgery, or cost of prescriptions when you don't have coverage, healthcare for sure would be number one, along with the wait times and the emerge. Also, the water issue that we have. Everyone deserves clean drinking water that, you can put a baby in and it doesn't look like you're putting them in a mud puddle. So yes, water issue is a huge issue right now. Housing or lack thereof. We may not have people on the streets homeless, but there are a number of people, especially younger people, who can't afford the rents, who can't afford to buy a new house, and they're couch surfing. So they're probably not captured in the number of homelessness, but they don't have a home to call a home. They're sleeping on someone's couch. The other thing is daycare. I hear a lot from young parents that they need the daycare spots, whether they're the $10 a day daycares or if they have to pay more, they don't care, but they can't go to work because they don't have daycare and they don't have family members here to help support with the children. So those are the things I'm hearing the most.
Thanks, Patty. And Keith.
Could you repeat the question again?
What do you see as the biggest issue facing our community, and what are your specific plans to address the issue?
Yeah, okay. So that would be taxes and tyranny. So I think taxes are immoral, for one, on their face, because they take from people who are actually building society, and they're also wasteful because they hurt. They basically punish the people who are trying to build things, right? And of course, tyranny, seems like every new government that comes in, there's more and more encroachment on people's lives. Now to the point where to get anything done, you're waiting, and you have to see this guy, and you have to get this permit, and it's almost impossible to get anywhere. So I think that is a real problem that we need to all work together to try to solve.
Thank you, Keith. And this will be the last question of the evening. And Ian is going to kick us off for this one. The newly formed Amalgamation has created many problems for Eastern Charlotte. How do you plan to work with municipal council and move our community forward? Waiting for a question on that one.
Oh, my gracious. Well, I guess for me, and being privy to having a chance to meet with the council, their catchment area has greatly increased. So the municipality has increased to, Back Bay, Blacks, Penfield, everywhere in between. So I guess very simply for me, I would love to be an advocate for them and help in any way that I can. And I would love to be able to be a vocal and advocate, especially and seeing that the municipality gets their town status back. Because if I've done the math, there's probably about $250,000 that is available to the town through having that allocation as a town status. So for me, although I'm new at this, I would really be a proponent of trying to help the municipality get their town status back as step one. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Patty.
I think number one, the MLA has to work with the mayor, has to work with the councilors 24/7. That's just my opinion. They've got to be hand in hand because they can't be at odds. It doesn't matter what color goes in compared to what color is on council. Everybody has vested interest in this community, and if you work against each other, nothing good is going to come because it's just another layer of government. And I feel sorry for the municipality. I feel like a lot of things are dumped on them. People in the community are confused as to, where do we go? Is this a municipal problem? Is this a provincial problem? Is this a federal problem? And, when at the end of the day, they can point the finger at the councillors and point the finger at the mayor in frustration because they can't get what they want done. I think everybody's got to work like in harmony to get it better. And like I met with Jason Gadet, I didn't realize we're now considered a rural entity. I didn't realize we lost 60% of our funding here because it was always a village of blacks in the town of St. George, and now we're nothing. So now we need to get some sort of status back, to get some more money, and to get the decision-making for this area out of Fredericton and get it back here to the mayor and the councillors and the boots on the ground that know best what this community needs, not somebody sitting in Fredericton.
Thanks, Patty. Keith.
So amalgamation was kind of forced on everyone from a top-down level. And it seems like there's a lot of people, at least, that were against that. We would support repealing that if any localities wanted to do that. Again, it was mostly done. It was mostly done against people's wills, and yeah. So we would support rolling that back completely if communities wanted that. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Okay, Chris, you started us off. You're going to finish us up here.
Yeah, I guess so. I agree with most of what has been said. No top-down decision-making. Collaboration is key on the part of the MLA or among different levels of government, because there are we're dealing with bureaucracies. Government is a puzzle sometimes, and it's really important to ferret out the pieces of the puzzle. I think town status is important, and I think that conflict resolution is important, negotiation strategies, maybe even shuttle diplomacy. So I think all of those things are important, and of course I support them.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. We somehow finished exactly on schedule with that final question. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed learning from all of you tonight. Can we give them all a big hand? It takes a lot to get up there. Was anyone in the room thinking what I was thinking, which is, oh my gosh, how difficult would that be to be sitting in front of a large room of people, being put on the spot? Yeah, they did a great job. Regretfully, we do have a few more questions in the box there. If you put a question in there and it didn't get answered tonight, I'm sure anyone on the stage here would welcome a question from you through some means of communication after this evening's over. So please do that. Sorry, not from the floor right now, but when will this be televised on CHCO? Early next week? Great question. Thank you. We're very, very pleased to have our friends at CHCO here with us this evening. Okay, so I'm going to turn things back over to Faith Avery, who will walk us through just a final sort of wrap up with a summary from candidates. Thank you for trucking through with me for the Q&A portion, everyone. Over to you, Faith.
Wow, that was fantastic. Lots of great questions. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I'd like to, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, thank you all for showing up and showing your platforms. And we'd like to give each candidate the opportunity to summarize their platform. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. We'll start with Chris.
Okay, I have a message from Alex White, the leader of the NB-NDP. He summarizes his vision of New Brunswick very well. I'll say it for as long as I can. Premier Higgs is taking our province in the wrong direction. Rather than focusing on the kitchen table issues that matter to New Brunswick families, he has been busy rewarding his rich, connected friends with tax cuts and chasing ideological obsessions. He promised that tax cuts for landlords would trickle down to more affordable rents, while now rents are rising faster in New Brunswick than anywhere else in the country. Instead of focusing on feeding kids who are coming to school hungry, he focused on obsessing about school bathrooms, attacking LGBTQ plus children, and getting into fights with teachers and parents over French immersion. Instead of fighting climate change, he focused on paying the polluters by handing back industrial carbon pricing revenues to big corporations and refusing to accept federal public transit funding. Instead of inventing a healthcare system currently in crisis due to staff or investing in a healthcare system currently in crisis due to staff shortages, he has eliminated the top income tax bracket for people making more than $166,000 per year. Instead of investing to build cheap renewable solar and wind energy, his mismanagement of NB Power has caused power bills to skyrocket. When Irving called him to help them raise the price of gas for New Brunswickers instead of paying to clean up their own act due to climate change regulations, he happily complied. When New Brunswick families cried out for help to deal with the rising cost of gas and groceries, Premier Higgs decided to announce $300 checks that were made deliberately hard to get, so less than 30% of the people eligible actually received it. So he says, it's time to give people a break. People need a break on the cost of living. People also need a break from the established political parties who have long governed this province and failed to solve our problems. Our plan is about making the tangible investments needed now to reduce the cost of living and create economic prosperity by making New Brunswick the best place to live, work, and raise a family. We will pay for the commitments in our plan by making the biggest corporations and the ultra-rich pay their fair share. And that is from Alex White.
Thank you. Ian?
Well, again, keeping aside the characterization of people, you're really at the point, ladies and gentlemen, where you need to make a decision on the merits of everybody's platform individually. So I will reiterate for myself, this election is crucial. It's going to be crucial for the province. I think it's going to be crucial for this country. So you're in a spot where you have the democratic right to vote for who you feel is best going to represent you, and who you think is best going to represent you in Fredericton and in this province. And really, when it comes down to it, the role that this province is going to play within this country. So for me, I'm just telling you here how I am. I'm here for you. I'm an advocate, irrespective of everybody's opinions. I'm tenacious. I have a list. I'm one of those people that has a priority list. I get 5 crossed off and I put 10 more on it. Listen, I've lived here. My family's from here. My reputation of teaching all those years is here. So I'm giving you myself. I'm offering myself to represent you, and I'm going to do it the best that I know how to do it. I'm going to be an advocate for you. The list of things that have come up, all those questions that have come up, They're things that we've heard on the road. We've heard all those things come up on the campaign trail. So it's already on our lists. It's already on our mind to address.
Thank you. Patty?
So I have a question for everybody in here, and whether this helps you and how to place your vote. Go back 6 years and think over the last 6 years. Is your life better now in the last 6 years under Premier Higgs running the province? Do you have a family doctor? Do you ever have to go to emerge, and do you enjoy the wait times at the emergency rooms? If you or a loved one suffer with mental illness, how are you treated? Is it easy to get a referral to a psychiatrist or a psychologist? What are your wait times for your specialists? And what are your wait times for your knee replacements, your hip replacements, your cataract surgery? If you're a healthcare worker, are you overworked? Are you stressed out? Are you respected at work? Are you given any supports? What about if you're a teacher? How do you feel when the Premier says, I have 4 kids or 3 kids and I'm glad I don't got to put them into a public school system? What does that say about our teachers? I think our teachers are great. Can you afford your rent? Can you afford your mortgage? And how are your electricity bills? Is Premier Higgs helping with your electricity bills? Liberal government will reduce the PST off them. How is your child doing with their teachers? How are their classrooms? Do they have a certified teacher? And what about the universal breakfast and lunch programs? What about the bus drivers who have been disrespected? How's your cell phone coverage? How's your internet coverage? And how are you managing with the spike in the property taxes? I'm all about finding answers, not about arguments. And I think our province needs to negotiate and not spend all the taxpayers' money on litigation, spending it in courts. So if you're happy with everything that's going on, then maybe you should stick your vote with Higgs again. But if you're not happy and you'd like a change, be the change and vote Holt.
Thank you, Patty. Keith?
So politicians don't really build anything with respect to everyone here. So government doesn't really actually build anything themselves. They have to take from someone else in order to build anything, right? They don't actually create any value unless they take it from someone else and then redistribute it. So I guess my only message is, like, regardless of how you vote or who you vote for, everyone here and everyone that watches this has rights that they weren't given to you by a piece of paper or the UN or anyone else. You were born with them, and the only thing a government can do is, at worst, infringe on them, and at best, leave you alone. I think everyone should remember that when any issue comes up. Yeah, that's everything.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth now.
Are you wondering what I could possibly have left to say? Just a farewell this evening and a big thank you to, again, our candidates here, our organizers, Faith for chairing, our friends at CHCO, and certainly to all of you for spending the evening with us. You've got a tough decision to make, but whatever your decision is, do decide to get out and cast your vote. Thanks, everyone. Drive safely.
A news and public affairs production of CHCO-TV, New Brunswick's only source for independent community television.